Halloween is right around the corner, and um, I've got a couple of problems. The first one is that I don't have a costume. Yeah, I thought about going as a guy obsessed with otters, but that's every day for me. And then you know, my second one is that I'm not really a big fan of all um, the frights and horrors that are typically associated with the holiday. Like, don't get me wrong, I can enjoy a good scary movie every once in a while, but like, I'm not gonna purposely sit down and watch one unless there's some ulterior motive going on. But what I do like doing is learning, and well, I decided for this month, since obviously I'm not going outside, I figured I could learn about the holiday instead. But that that led to some other problems. Um, First and foremost, most people don't actually understand the origins of the holiday, or any holiday for that matter. So let's talk about Halloween and how we lost some historical context. You'll notice that for this video, I'm sitting in a different spot, in a mostly dimly lit room for ambiance. So I hope you enjoy that. Anyways, let's pull up my there we go. Pull up my script that I've got written here. So let's see. Zentalica. No, that's for my upcoming D&D campaign. So it's that one. I wrote a lot of notes for that campaign. Oh, here it is. Okay, cool. So I already got past the intro. No, I decided not to make that joke. Let's see. Cool. So we all know the stories, right? Halloween is rooted in pagan traditions from the ancient group of Celts in England. Uh, Except there's a lot of things wrong with that. The Celtic people of Ireland, England, Wales, and Scotland never celebrated Halloween. Their celebration was for Samhain, or the coming of winter, on November 1st. Coincidentally, the Catholic Church also had a celebration on the same day, known as All Saints' Day, All Hallows' Day, Hallowmas, and other variations of the name, which they celebrated the saints, known or unknown. Halloween, or Hallows' Eve, comes from this tradition and is the day of celebration in many countries, such as Ireland, the United Kingdom, and the United States. The celebration of Dia de los Muertos, also on November 1st and November 2nd, rises from the celebration of All Saints' Day as well. And if we're wanting to be truthful, modern Halloween that is celebrated in the US, Ireland, and the UK are both of these holidays and neither of them at the same time. Samhain was first recorded in the 9th century in Ireland, although it's almost certainly much older than this, with evidence suggesting the Neolithic period of Ireland and England, and a celebration of the saints in Christianity was recorded as early as the year 400. So there's no doubt that both holidays influenced each other, taking bits and pieces that fit with the culture that they represented. So, as an example of these traditions, intertwining and whatnot as they normally would, especially because of the close contact with Ireland and both its pagan cultures and Catholicism coming through. The celebration of Samhain has the tradition where we gain um sorry, I could have sworn I heard something. But um yeah. So that's the tradition where, the boundaries between this world and the spirit world are, closely or closer together than they normally are, and so that tradition is rooted heavily in both Samhain and in its counterpart, Beltane, in the spring. And and so I swear I'm hearing something else again. Anyway, so the tradition was originally from the pagan cultures, but it got assimilated into the Catholic faith, and that's where the idea of the barrier between worlds being really thin for both All Saints Day and Halloween comes from, as they plucked it straight from there. Yeah, I'm just gonna move on. Just gonna move on. In fact, this exact same story plays out over and over again in most Christian holidays. There's Beltane or May Day, which we had already just talked about, and its Christian counterpart, Easter. Both have completely separate origins, but likely influenced each other. Christmas, Yule, Saturnalia, and Hanukkah, well, they all coincide at the same time of year, but have vastly different reasons for celebrating them. Knowing all this makes it pretty weird for me when people say that the Christian holiday supplanted the others as a show of religious dominance, or that celebrating the other is taking back cultural heritage from its Christian suppression. While that definitely happened, it's not like the holidays were made up for that purpose, and it's absolutely true that the traditions and celebrations never actually died out. What has actually happened here is that we lost the historical context for these celebrations over the past 2,000 years. Let's see. Let's see. What's the. Okay, okay. I can't be the only one who heard that. Okay, right. Like, just that that door, that door, that was closed when I started recording. Wait, is there anything? I don't see anything. Like, like you heard that, right? Like that's like you gotta actually make noise for that. Just make sure my shot is set up right again. Let's see. Let's pick back up where we were. There's a lot of reasons as to why we lose the history surrounding our traditions, celebrations, and even the origins of countries and people as a whole. The biggest one is time. The United States was founded nearly 250 years ago, and at best, most Americans can only tell you a mythologized version of the histories that created it. I can barely remember what I ate for lunch 3 days ago, and you're expecting people to maintain an accurate telling of events that happened 2.5 centuries ago, let alone the reasonings to celebrate the nation's Independence Day on 4th of July. The voices and opinions of those people are long gone in the past, and we're left trying to piece together what evidence, typically through writing, that they left behind to keep and maintain as close to accurate what we're doing. If you've ever played the telephone game, you know that a simple message can change in the course of seconds. Imagine doing that with a history that's over 1,000 years old. That is what the flow of time does. It's a common problem in archaeology. Speaking of which, another big issue with historical context and its loss is the destruction of said context. Some people may be thinking of the loss of the Library of Alexandria or the deteriorated scrolls that are constantly found all over the Middle East. But I have a far more impactful example. The countless tribes of American Indians haven't traditionally had a writing system. Their culture was passed down orally throughout the countless generations, most often in their native language, and most of those stories and histories were never recorded. So, what happens when the people themselves are lost? As the older generations passed on and the younger generations were forced to assimilate into quote unquote American society, those stories don't get passed down to them and their own culture dies out. Oftentimes, the only examples of native culture that they have are the portrayals of Indians in movies, which are horrible on their own, and the other cultures that have survived that aren't their own. Remember, not all American Indians are the same people. Heck, a lot of them don't even like each other. Genocide is a destruction of historical context for those who manage to survive it. You also have many other examples, such as the destruction of Cahokia for agriculture, the vandalism of Stonehenge, the destructive looting of sites in El Mirador, the guy who drove his truck through the Nazca lines, or Graham Hancock's Ancient Apocalypse series on Netflix. Seriously, if you're trying to rewrite history just so you can claim your headcanon story about Atlantis is real, is a textbook example of destroying the historical context of the sites he talked about in that show. Don't watch it. It's bad. It's like really, really bad. Which, this kind of brings me to another point. They often claim that history is written by the victors. A lot of times we don't have information about a culture except by the people who fought against them or the people who came after them. The city of Troy was thought to be just as mythical as Atlantis is, until its ruins were discovered in the 1900s. What's even crazier about it is that we thought the same of the mother culture that it belonged to, the Hittite Empire. Sure, it was mentioned in the Bible, but because it was so thoroughly destroyed during the Bronze Age collapse, we had no reason to even suspect that it was real. Mostly because its ruins were built over by the cultures that followed after it, like the Empire of Alexander the Fairly Popular. With cultures like the Roman Empire, we have their ruins, their writings, and a lot of writings from the people who didn't like them very much. But with its sworn enemy, Carthage, we only have writings about it from Rome. If you're only remembered by what others say about you, you can't really expect there to be an accurate account of your life and the culture that you were a part of. I've got one last bit to pull us all around full circle. Ireland, the land in which Samhain originates, has another holiday that it's famous for, St. Patrick's Day. But why is St. Patrick famous enough to have a holiday dedicated to himself outside of the celebration of All Saints' Day? Well, that's clearly because he drove the snakes from Ireland. But there's a problem with that story. See, the archaeological records and the fossil records show that there hasn't been any species of snakes native to Ireland in the last 100,000 years. You can't attribute something that goes that far back to the actions of a man around the year 400. Which, oddly enough, it's around the same point in history that we see the reduction of celebrating the pagan traditions in Ireland, as well as the spread of Christianity in the Isles. Let's not forget that Ireland during that time had its own writings, but it also had a whole slew of history that wasn't recorded, even by them, because most of their stuff was oral traditions up until a certain point. The Neolithic sites where the holiday originated from, those cultures don't have writing. But the later Irish did, to an extent. See, most of the stories that we have from Ireland during its pagan times were recorded by the Christians afterwards, and a lot of them were Christianized even then to try to make them more palatable to the greater Christian culture that was starting to take root, especially around the year 400. It's an important date for this. But, but you see, there were no snakes in Ireland. History is full of ghost stories, frights, and horrors. But unlike the ones that you may potentially be telling with your friends and family around the campfire during this holiday season, they're ghosts of the past. And oftentimes, the names, reasons for the stories, and how they got to the modern era are forgotten. So, to follow the belief of the veil between this world and the world of the dead and spirits being thinned, open up a history book and see what those ghosts had to say for themselves. Well, till next time. Hello? Where'd my lights go? I, I this. Wait. This really isn't help. This isn't helping. Come on. Hello? Help?